A very good morning to my dear students of class 8, and I am glad to welcome you all to today's biology class. What are we going to learn today? Our today's topic is going to be about pyramid of numbers. So what is today's topic? Pyramid of numbers. We have been studying about food web and food chain in our previous class, no? So this pyramid, Egypt's pyramid, you must have heard already, right? So this pyramid is not going to be about Egypt's pyramid, but this is going to be something related to food chain and food web in the ecosystem. So let's get started. So before learning about the pyramid of numbers, we'll recall some basic concepts. What are producers? Producers are mainly plants, right? Why they are called producers? Because in this ecosystem, the only organism which can produce food are the plants, so they are called as producers, and they are the source of food for all other organisms. Either directly or indirectly, plants are the main source of food. Say for example, if an animal feeds a plant, then you can call that the animal or the consumer eats the producer directly. Or sometimes if the animal is going to be a carnivore, then they will indirectly depend on the producers. How a primary producer will eat the plants and the carnivore or the secondary consumer will eat the primary consumer, right? So now the secondary consumer indirectly depends on the plants. If there are not going to be any primary consumer, then the secondary consumer or the carnivore will starve for food, right? Say for example, there is a plant and a goat eats a plant. Goat is a primary consumer here, right? So if a lion needs food, it has to eat the goat, right? So the secondary consumer, that is the lion, will feed on the primary consumer, that is the goat. But if there has to exist a goat in this earth, it is obvious that there should be plants in the earth. If there are no plants or producers in the earth, the primary consumer, that is the goat, cannot survive, right? So the secondary consumer, that is the lion, cannot also survive. So all organisms will depend on the producers either directly, such as the goat, it will depend directly, or such as the lion, it will depend indirectly on the producers, that is the green plants. Clear? Then what about consumers? Consumers depend upon the producers. I gave an explanation, no? So directly or indirectly they depend on the producers. Then what is called pyramid of numbers? It is a feeding relationship represented in the form of a pyramid. Even food chain and food web, they describe as feeding relationship, right? So if this feeding relationship is going to be represented in the form of a pyramid shape, then you call it as pyramid of numbers. When I explain further, no, you will understand it clearly. For now, just know that pyramid of numbers is a feeding relationship between organisms which is represented in the shape of a pyramid. That's why it is called as pyramid of numbers. Clear? Then before learning the explanation part, see, this is a picture for pyramid of numbers. Can you see the shape is like a pyramid and many organisms are drawn on the pyramid. I'll explain what it is later. Before that, what is pyramid of numbers? How can you define it? It is a representation. What does it mean, representation? Actually, it is not happening. You don't have animals climbing on pyramids, all right? Can you see like this in nature? Are animals climbing on pyramids? No. It is just a representation, which means to convey something, you give a picture or represent by other means, no? So pyramid of numbers, it's a imaginary representation. Why this word is important? Why I insist again and again? Because this is not happening in reality. Nothing is going to climb on each other and form a pyramid like structure. It is only a representation. Representation of what it will represent? The number of producers or consumers in this ecosystem. I told you pyramid of numbers is a representation. No, what is going to be represented? The number of producers or consumers existing in this ecosystem or in the world or in the earth is going to be represented in the pyramid of numbers. That's why it is a representation of number of producers and consumers. And also you can see progressive decrease in number, that is decrease in number. See, if you see the number of plants here, you can see plants in the lowermost level. They are many in number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers you have. So, progressive decrease in number from here to here. That's why it gets the shape of a pyramid. No, it is big in the base and it is narrowing towards the top. That is why it is called a pyramid shape, right? So, progressive decrease in number. Here you see many plants, but at the tip of the pyramid you can see only one bird here. So, there is always progressive decrease in number in a pyramid of number, and successive levels are represented. What is this level? Actually, there is a word called as a trophic level. What is it called? Trophic levels. What are trophic levels? Trophic level means, see, this is called the first trophic level where you can find producers, okay, and the one which directly consumes the first trophic level is called the second trophic level, and this is the third trophic level, fourth trophic level. If one feeds the other, that falls in the second place. Always plants or the producers occupy the first trophic level, and the successive levels, which means the next levels, no, second, third and fourth will be consuming each other. Say for example, the second trophic level will consume the first trophic level, the third trophic level will consume the second trophic level, and the fourth will consume the third trophic level. Like this, depending upon the length of the food chain, you have learnt about food chain and food web, no? Depending upon the length of the chain, the number of trophic levels can be X or N in number. It is not necessary that there should be particular number of trophic levels. It all depends upon the length of the food chain or the food web. So, what we have studied about pyramid of numbers, it is just a imaginary representation, but it is not happening in reality. Nothing like a pyramid exists. It is only a representation of the number of producers or consumers that are existing in a ecosystem. And when you see a pyramid, you can see decrease in number. From the base, it gradually decreases, and the successive levels, that is the first trophic level, second trophic level, third trophic levels, are all represent. You can see in the, if you see a pyramid of number, you can just make it out that how many levels are there or what feeds what, everything you will get from this, the informations all you will get from pyramid of numbers when you see the representation. Clear? This shows pyramid of numbers. This picture is a pyramid of number representation. What can you see in the base? You can see producers in the base. What are producers? Some grassland, trees, herbs or bushes, everything is represented in the base, right? It means that producers are found in the base. Why it is called maximum in numbers? Say for example, if you have a garden, you count the number of plants in the garden, let it be a tree or a bush, herb or whatever it is, whether it is a lawn, whatever it is, you can count the number of plants in your garden. Also, try to count the number of insects or animals, what you have, a cat, dog, like that. You can count the number of animals surrounding in that area. Okay. So, which number will be high, the number of plants or the number of animals and insects? Number of plants only will be very high, no? So, always in this world or in earth, the number of producers will be the highest in number. So, usually for pyramid of numbers, no, it does not represent the entire earth or the entire world. Okay. What it will represent? It will represent only a particular ecosystem. Okay. One particular area only it will include. It is not the number of plants and animals throughout this world. It is not that way. It is only the number of organisms or plants. For every trophic level it applies. It is the number of organisms living in one particular area. If I am going to talk about producers, it is the plants and herbs that is present only in one particular ecosystem or area. Okay, wherever the food chain or food web exists, no, only that area organisms you have to count. So, producers always make the maximum numbers and they are found in the base of the pyramid, and the number of producers are higher than the number of primary consumers. Next, when you count the number of primary consumers, here rats, some insects, honey, bee, butterflies, caterpillar, ant is all given, which all will depend on the green plants for its or producers for its food. These are primary consumers in this food chain, right. So, when you count the number of primary consumers, they will be comparatively less than the number of producers which are in the base, and when you count the number of secondary consumers, they will be greater than the number of tertiary consumers. You can explain in two ways. Either I can tell producers are higher in number than the primary consumers, or I can tell primary consumers are less in number than the producers. In both the ways you can give explanation. So, here the number of secondary consumers, which are the secondary consumers here? These are the secondary consumers, right. So, the number of secondary consumers are higher, are greater than the number of the tertiary consumers. These are tertiary consumers. In any ecosystem, this rule will apply. So, when you count the number of snakes in one particular area, the number will be less when compared to the number of frogs in that particular area. The number of snakes will be always lesser than the number of frogs. Similarly, the number of plants will be higher than the number of ants or worms living in that area, and the number of frogs will be less than the number of ants in a particular area, and the number of snakes will be less than the number of frogs or rats in a particular area. And finally, if you see a vulture or an eagle, no, that number will be even less than the number of snakes living in a particular ecosystem. So, this is how the number will decrease from the base to the top of the pyramid. That is why it is called as, it gets the shape of a pyramid. When you arrange according to the trophic levels, no, finally if you see, the shape will, what you achieve will be in the form of a pyramid. That is how this pyramid of numbers has been represented, or that is why it gets its shape after arranging the trophic levels. Because it decreases only, you get the shape of a triangle or a pyramid. Clear? So, what is pyramid of numbers? Every time producers are highest in number, which exists in the base of the pyramid, and the number of primary consumers will be lesser than the producers. The number of secondary consumers will be lesser than the number of primary producers and the primary consumers and the producers, and the number of tertiary consumers will be less than the number of secondary consumers, primary consumers and producers, and finally the above trophic level organisms will be still less than number, and finally in the tip you will have only one or few organisms. So, this is pyramid of numbers. And one more topic you have, it is called energy flow. How energy flows? See, plants get energy from sunlight, we have studied already, right? Plants will get sunlight and light energy is converted into chemical energy, that is by the process of photosynthesis food is produced. Okay. So, now that energy from the sun is present in the plants, right? How much energy will be present? 100% energy will it be present? And what will happen when goat eats the plant? Will 100% energy be transferred to the goat, or only few percentage is getting transferred? So, about this only we are going to learn energy flow in a ecosystem. So, as I told you, sunlight is converted into chemical energy. When it is converted into chemical energy? By the process of photosynthesis, sunlight is converted into chemical energy. Why you call it as chemical energy? Why it is called as chemical energy? Because the glucose produced, what is the chemical formula for glucose? C6 H12O6, which is a chemical called as glucose, right? That's why you call that sunlight is converted into a chemical energy, or simply we call it as food, but actually it is a chemical energy in the form of a substance called as glucose. Okay. So, this chemical energy we call it as food in general terms. So, now this food the herbivores eat, right? What are herbivores? The primary consumers. Whoever eats grass as food, they are called as herbivores, right? So, obviously primary consumers are only plant eating animals. Say for example, in this picture, okay, here the rat, bee, butterfly, worm, they are all herbivores. Why? Because they don't eat flesh, rather they depend on the plants for their food. They are herbivores. Now we are talking about energy flow, right? So, this energy which is present in the plants is now transferred to the herbivores. Okay. So, the plant by photosynthesis has taken sunlight and stored in it in the form of chemical energy. Now, when a herbivore or a primary consumer eats the plant, that energy is transferred to the primary consumer or the herbivore. Okay. So, there is energy flow, that is what I mean to tell you. There is flow of energy from sunlight to the plant, then again to the primary consumer or the herbivore, and when the carnivores, that is the secondary and tertiary consumers or higher levels if we have, further when the carnivores consume the primary consumers, that energy which is present in the herbivores or the primary consumers will go to who it will go? It will go to the carnivores or secondary consumers. So, if you see, there is flow of energy in the ecosystem from the sunlight. Light energy converted into chemical energy will flow to the herbivore when the herbivore eats it, and from the herbivore it will go to the carnivore when the carnivore eats the herbivore. So, if you see, even in physics you might have studied, no, energy is never created nor destroyed, but it is transferred from one form to another and it keeps on flowing. So, light energy is now present in every organism, like producers, consumers, like in plants and animals, all the energy is transferred and it keeps on flowing. Okay, how much energy will flow from one organism to another, we will learn in the next slide. See, ecology, what is ecology? Study about ecosystem is called ecology. Okay. In ecology, there is a term called as rule of 10. What is it called? Rule of 10. What is this rule of 10? Rule of 10 means energy always flow only 10% to the next trophic level. Say for example, from the sunlight, if the producer, which one will absorb energy from the sunlight? The producers, right? So, these are producers, and producers, suppose if they get 100% of energy, it is not that all energy from the sun. If you consider that the energy obtained by the producer from the sun as 100%, so how much of energy it will get from the sun? Consider that energy as 100%. Okay. So, if you consider that plants have 100% energy, that is producers have 100% energy now. Okay. Now, when a primary consumer, when a herbivore or a primary consumer eats a producer, it will get only 10% of the energy. What is 10% in maths? You might have studied, no? What is percentage? Usually if you want to represent, if I tell the word 10%, you have to write it as 10 by 100. Okay. So, if I tell us 9%, you will write it as 9 by 100. For the percentage, you will denote the number 100, right? So, what did I tell you now? I told you Only 10% of the energy is transferred. Now, if the producers have 100%, the consumers, the primary consumer, that is the herbivore, will get only 10% of the energy from the producers. So now producers have 10%, 100%, right? So consumers will get only 10%, that is 10 by 100. Only this much of energy who will get? The primary consumer or the herbivore will get. If you cancel, what you will get? What number you will get? 10 is the answer, no? So how much this one will get? The herbivore will get only 10% the herbivore will get. Are you clear? I told you, according to the rule of 10, there is a rule called rule of 10. It means that only 10% of energy will flow to the next trophic level, which means if a plant has 100% energy, when a goat goes and eat the plant, even if it is going to eat the whole plant, it will get only 10% of energy. How you will calculate 10%? Write 10 by 100. Here 100 and 100 if you cancel, the answer will be 10, no? So only 10% it will get. Why? What happened to the other energy? All other energy are used for the metabolic activities of the plant or any organism. Okay, what are metabolic activities? In your body you have many metabolic activities, no, like respiration, everything is a metabolic activity. In plants also photosynthesis, like that many processes will happen just like human beings, no. The 90%, the remaining 90% of the energy will be used for other activities for the plants, especially the metabolic activities of the plants. So only finally 10% only will be transferred. Okay. Now how much of energy the herbivores have, that is the primary consumers have? They have only 10%. Already there is only 10%. So when a secondary consumer, that is a carnivore, consumes the primary consumer, how much energy this will get? 10% of 10% only it will get. Already they have only 10%. So out of this, if you consider 10%, so 10 by 100, what will be the answer? If you cancel 0 and 0, the answer will be 1. So to the next trophic level, how much energy is transferred? Only 1% of energy is transferred to the next trophic level. What about the tertiary consumers? How much energy they will get? Again, if you calculate, so now how much you have? You have, how much you have? Already I have only 1% in the secondary consumer. In 1%, 10% if it has to be transferred, it will be 1 by 10. How much is 1 by 10? 1 by 10 is? How much is 1 by 10? So, 1 decimal place it will go this way. So, it will be 0.1%. So, secondary consumer will have only 0.1%. So, this is how energy is transferred. Only 10% of energy is transferred to the next trophic level. Clear? So, for your homework, read page number 57, read the concepts clearly and update yourself regularly. So, this is all for today's zoology class. Until I meet you tomorrow in your next botany class, you all take care and bye-bye.